I have the wonderful privilege of being the last presenter on a day full of presentations and after a professional presenter. So thanks, everyone. I grew up in a small town. Okay, Airdrie is a really big city now, but when I grew up there, it was the kind of place where you went to the grocery store and you always ran into somebody that you knew. I'm privileged to be a third-generation settler in Treaty 7 territory, and my maternal roots go back 6 generations in rural Manitoba in Treaty 2. I don't know if it's these homesteading roots or the farming and ranching backgrounds, but I have a real connection to the land. I feel strongly connected to what it means to the prairies, to the foothills and the mountains. This is just west of my house. And I feel that rural community resilience and our roadshow program, this is where the rubber really hits the road. So sometimes when I'm working on energy transition solutions that are very theoretical and hypothetical and future-oriented, I feel lost in this connection to the earth. But when I come back to this work, I can get regrounded. This is really where we need to find the solutions that work today. It's not very helpful to work with a community and say, here's the future energy system that's coming in 30 years. Maybe you want to think about preparing for it. You have to think of things and realize things that will work right now. So rural Alberta is very affected by our energy and changing economy and by our energy transition. And they're often very left out of the solutions and the conversations, which is too bad because the work that happens outside of urban areas is really what fuels our province. Keeps food on our tables, keeps our lights on, heats our homes. And with the increasing causes of climate change, creating more floods and disasters, these natural disasters can really devastate these remote rural communities. If your economy is tied to this resource extraction, if it goes away, then that's about all you have. And we know we have all of these historical development that has created a lot of prosperity within the province, which is great. All these rural areas have seen growth and population increase. But with declining development, what's going to happen now with the legacy assets? Are there going to be good jobs in the future? And are people's kids going to stick around to raise their families there? With all of these challenges, these are enormous challenges to tackle. And you could imagine that on a First Nation or in a small municipality, there's very few people whose day job it is to actually address these challenges. I've had the privilege to meet 2 CAOs this year that have shown me what it means to be a local superhero. These folks need to be experts in policy development and infrastructure development and community planning and social programs, and now energy transition as well. This is a lot to ask, but I know that rural Alberta is well poised for the transition, and it's because of their ability to adapt. Have you ever met a farmer who couldn't fix something with just whatever was lying around in their shop, right? The ability to adapt when used for the purpose of self-preservation is an incredibly valuable resource. Self-preservation is often one of those narratives that comes out of rural Alberta as a negative, right? This desire to maintain the status quo, to not want things to change, self-preservation. But self-preservation can be done through adaptation as well. Self-preservation can also lead to something called NIMBY, which we all know is a concept of not in my backyard, not wanting development and progress. That can make sense. If you're a trapper, you're not going to want seismic lines and roads through your area. That's going to affect your livelihood, not just yours, but future generations as well. But if we work within the adaptation mindset and we adapt the word NIMBY, we get the word nimble. And that's actually another reason that rural communities are well poised for this transition. They're incredibly nimble. At the very first workshop for Athabasca in our roadshow program, Berend came in and did a presentation on the Clean Energy Improvement Program. It wasn't 2 weeks later that town council had it on their agenda to discuss passing a bylaw around that. They moved with lightning speed. The town of Rainbow Lake, when we first started working with them, said, our natural gas utility is off limits. It's the primary source of revenue for our small town. We can't touch it. It's untouchable. 4 months later, they allocated $2.5 million from the reserve fund from the boom times towards a geothermal infrastructure system that would eventually put their natural gas utility out of business. They did that because the change makers were around the table to create the vision together for what they wanted their community to be. They wanted to be net carbon negative. They had a very ambitious goal. They realized that their plans weren't aligned with that goal, and they took action. The last reason, I know they're ready. So 5 years and 10 roadshows ago, we sat with communities to talk about a possible energy transition and the effects that that might have on their economies. Now, we are racing to keep up with communities as they grab hold of the reins, and they forge their way towards the future that they want to create for themselves. This is what we do in the Energy Futures Roadshows. We sit with communities and we explore what energy transition means in their local context. We understand what it means for them, what their unique challenges are, what the unique opportunities are. When we do this, we come up with initiatives that are well-tailored to their area. That's how the idea of shelter belts and biochar came up in Brooks. So this is a concept where the shelter belts are getting old, they need to be torn down. Maggie gave them the idea you could turn that material into biochar, which could then be used as nutrients for the soil. You can then replant the shelter belts, creating youth employment in the area. This was done by a couple of accountants with Maggie at their table. This wasn't because it was their day job, it's because they care. They care so much about their community. They want to make a change, and they want to create solutions that make sense for them. Creating those solutions that make sense for them gives them a sense of hope. You know, working on climate change and energy transition can be overwhelming. We know it can cause anxiety, and it can be lonely as well. So when we sit with our friends and neighbors with sticky notes and co-op donuts, we co-create our future together. That gives us a sense of autonomy, a sense of control over our own destiny. That makes us want to roll up our sleeves and get involved. And it doesn't matter what role you play in the community, everybody's got value to add. One of the participants from the Athabasca Roadshow is actually an artist within the print portfolio. And when we brought Mark, I believe it was, to one of the roadshows, she kind of lit up. You know, she was bringing her day job with her to the conversation, and she said, oh, you know, I'm an artist on the side, and I'd love to bring that into this story as well. And so they're showing up in lots of different ways. So I believe that the folks who are most impacted by our changing economy and our changing energy system should get that autonomy. They should get that say in where the future energy system goes. So my call to action is, how can you include rural communities in your energy transition solutions? You can come talk to me in the breakout session afterwards. Thanks.